everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and it's Tuesday. Gotta get down on Tuesday. It's my favourite time of the week because there's all this wrestling news to talk about. That's right, it's been a bit of a jam-packed few days in terms of wrestling action and news, and we're going to talk about some of that right now. We've got some WWE news, we've got some AEW news, we've got some news of a bit of a legend who was supposed to appear at WrestleMania, Wrestle-Bloody-Mania, and then obviously other circumstances got in the way. So with all that said, let's waste no further time and let's get straight in to those lovely headlines. First of all, a recent WWE release is apparently set to return this week. Next up, there's been a title change on last night's Monday Night Raw. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And finally, yes indeed, Hulk Hogan was set to not only appear at WrestleMania 36, but to compete on the card as well. So the man that all of the news sites are talking about in the wrestling world today is none other than Drew Gulak, who of course recently hit the headlines because of his departure from WWE. Gulak's contract expired and he was simply released by the company, and it was very weird, wasn't it, because he just, on that episode of SmackDown just before the news broke, he had just wrestled an excellent tournament match against Daniel Bryan, which WWE then put on their social media and shared about and stuff, but they used the caption, Daniel Bryan takes on his training partner. It was really odd. But it seems as though WWE have gone from not even naming Drew Gulak on social media to welcoming him back into the fold. At least that is according to several different news sites. The Wrestling Observer says that Drew Gulak appears to be back in WWE following the expiration of his contract earlier this month. Then Fightful followed up on that, suggesting that Gulak is going to be working a battle royal that is scheduled to take place on this week's SmackDown on Friday. Fightful then said that it wasn't confirmed if Gulak had re-signed a new contract with WWE or not, but then PW Insider suggested that that indeed is the case. Gulak was then obviously moved to the alumni section of the website when this all went down, but he was moved back to the active superstars section. He's no longer in the alumni section of the website, and WWE of course never officially confirmed the release, so it could well have been a case of them deliberately not doing so because they had a bit of a suspicion that there were still further negotiations to go through with Gulak and that there was a decent chance that he would indeed sign a new contract. It's certainly a bit of a strange turn of events, especially given the apparent ruthlessness, I guess, with which WWE had been releasing people up until now, and you'd imagine that if somebody's contract expired, they'd just be like, right, see you later, especially not a main eventer like Drew Gulak, you know what I mean? It's someone very much part of the mid-card. Then again, the fact that they were open to Gulak re-signing may be to do with the fact that he has currently elevated his stock somewhat in the SmackDown pecking order, allying with Daniel Bryan, being his tag partner, and also having these babyface versus babyface matches with Bryan that generally have been really good. Well, this one babyface versus babyface match. They had a good heel versus face match on pay-per-view a little while ago as well, didn't they? So we'll see where this story leads, and if he shows up on Friday, then, you know, it looks as though he may have re-signed a contract. If he shows up in the Battle Royal, that's a bit of the story I'm quite interested in, because I want to know what this Battle Royal is about. Unless I've missed an announcement about what the Battle Royal is, and if I have, please do leave a little message in the comment section down below, but I'm just going to guess what it is, I suppose. It can't be for the #1 contendership to the Intercontinental Championship, can it? Because there's already a tournament going on for that. It could be a tag team battle royal for the tag team titles #1 contendership, I guess. You know what? I actually don't really know. It could even be to decide a future contender for the Universal Championship. Last time we saw Braun Strowman, he was of course, well, Otis was gonna cash in on him, and then it was a little sneaky tease, and he didn't in the end. With all that said, let's move from SmackDown to Monday Night Raw and talk about a big title change that took place on last night's show. The title in question was the United States Championship, and it's no longer around the waist of Andrade. He had a fairly long reign, but I wouldn't suggest an overly eventful one, in part due to the ongoing lockdown and everything, but also I think just the fact that he was kind of caught up into fighting amongst his own stable, and also was often taking on Drew McIntyre in non-title matches. But still, it was a fairly promising reign for Andrade. I think it signifies bigger things in his future, hopefully. Hopefully this means that he's not going to go down the card because he's lost the belt. Hopefully it means they're freeing up space for him to move up the card. But who did he lose the belt to? Well, the man in question was none other than Apollo Crews, returning from his kayfabe injury to take the title from Andrade and give us a big, feel-good babyface win. And unless I'm very much mistaken, it could be, I think it's Apollo's first title in WWE full stop, which is great news for him. And it was certainly a bit of a feel-good moment as well, because obviously Apollo has recent history with Andrade. He pinned Andrade a few weeks ago in a non-title sort of it was a tag team match, and then later on in that night he got a proper title match against Andrade, and that's where he kayfabe injured his leg and was thereby removed from the Money in the Bank ladder match, which was like coming up shortly after that episode of Raw. And that was a shame, and I was one of those people who was very critical of that decision, or at least mystified by that decision, I think is more accurate to say, because I thought, well, surely Apollo would be great in a Money in the Bank ladder match. He's one of the most athletic guys they've got. Then I've now, realized why they did this. It was to manufacture, I guess, a storyline by which he could then take the United States Championship a little bit further down the line. So I'm going to take back my criticism of that decision. It's all worked out well for Apollo Crews in the end. Now hopefully he can have a good reign, because recently WWE's mid-card titles have not had the strongest or most prominently booked champions, and hopefully Apollo Crews as the US champion can kind of buck this trend. Now over to AEW, where they have confirmed that a battle royal will be taking place on this week's Dynamite on Wednesday night to determine Cody's first challenger for that TNT championship. It's also been speculated that they could potentially be unveiling the newly finished design of the TNT championship belt itself on Dynamite. However, that hasn't been confirmed. I love a battle royal though for number one contendership status. That's why I'm hoping that the one on SmackDown is for a similar sort of prize or status. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to seeing who will face Cody for that championship, because I think the fact that it's Cody as champion, that kind of opens the door for a lot of different potential candidates. The reason I say that is because obviously Cody's one of the best baby faces in wrestling right now. He can have a compelling match with just about any heel on the roster as long as they've got time to build a storyline around it. I think that's really, really good. But on the other hand, Cody also isn't above using heelish tactics sometimes. In AEW's history, we've seen him use Brandy as a distraction on the outside. We've seen him do slightly sneaky things behind the referee's back. And I think that if it was a face versus face encounter, because he's so experienced and so in such a powerful position in AEW, then he can easily play the kind of de facto heel to a more pure out-and-out babyface, someone like, for example, Jungle Boy. I also think that whoever wins the match, if it's somebody that hasn't received a big push yet in AEW, then that could be a signal that they are in line for a big push, because they've been essentially put in a program with Cody, and often he has these big feature feuds that run for a long time throughout the course of AEW, from pay-per-view to pay-per-view. So I think this is a really good sign. Hopefully it's someone compelling. I'd like that. But then on the other hand, of course, there were people who were critical of the decision to have Lance Archer lose that tournament final to Cody for the title at the pay-per-view at Double or Nothing. But at the same time, I could understand why they did that, because I think that, even though Lance Archer is the newer guy on the AEW scene and could perhaps have used the victory a bit more, I think that Cody as the first champion and as the fighting defending champion kind of just makes a little bit more sense to me. But I do still have hope for Lance Archer. I don't think that, AEW are going to let him go to waste now that he hasn't won that title. I feel as though there could be something good on the horizon for him. He's just been too good in recent weeks not to be used properly. And that brings me on to my next news story, because this could feature Lance Archer, potentially. That's a bit of speculation. However, the story is that Mike Tyson will be appearing once again in AEW, this time on this week's Dynamite. Tyson, of course, appeared at Double or Nothing, presenting the TNT Championship to Cody after he had won that match. Also, during the match, Tyson got minorly involved, scaring off Jake the Snake Roberts when he was trying to interfere, and I was a little bit surprised. The reason I was surprised was because Tyson didn't really do much of anything else. It was a comparatively brief appearance and there wasn't too much of a light shone on him. Basically what I'm saying is I thought he was going to knock someone out. So that's why I'm suggesting that, because now that we've got confirmation that Tyson is appearing on Dynamite this week, we could maybe see him get more physically involved this time around. Obviously, he's not as young as he once was in the Attitude Era, but he is in excellent physical condition, and I have no doubt could probably do what's required of him. Now, I wonder if this is going to feature Lance Archer as well, because obviously in the build-up to the Cody versus Archer match, we had Jake the Snake and Arn Anderson talking about, well, many things, but one of them was Mike Tyson. And whether it was an improvised line or whether it was planned, but it was kind of thrown in a bit of an improvised way, Jake said, I'm going to give Lance Archer the first crack at Tyson. Now, if that was part of the script, and if they've decided to just run with that, if Jake just said it off the cuff and they've gone, you know what, let's do that. That's why I think that Lance could be involved in some capacity in the Tyson segment on Dynamite. Once again, though, that is just pure speculation. He could just be there just to present, the brand new, newly reworked TNT Championship. We don't know. but it's certainly going to be interesting. And again, it could be a great ratings boost for AEW. I mean, you've got Mike Tyson on your weekly TV show. That's probably gonna do well. And finally, let's talk about a report by Paul Davis of WrestlingNews.co, because he suggests that not only was Hulk Hogan meant to appear at WrestleMania 36, he was meant to compete on the show. So Davis acknowledges that a little while ago, the Wrestling Observer were reporting that Hulk Hogan had been meant to be part of the show at WrestleMania 36 if everything had gone ahead and the world had kept going as normal. And the reason was twofold. One, Hogan lives in Tampa, so it would have been easy enough to engineer an appearance for him. And two, as well, he would have already been in town. He would have already been part of the festivities because he was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame alongside the other members of the New World Order. But then, of course, plans changed. WrestleMania got totally revamped and changed from anything that we expected it to be. We got that empty arena show in the Performance Center, and apparently that deprived us of a Hulk Hogan WrestleMania match in 2020. So yes, WrestlingNews.co are saying that they were told that apparently by a WWE source that Hogan was meant to take part and win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. The source said the idea was that he wouldn't take any bumps. We would work it so that he would only have to eliminate one or two guys at the end, and then he would get his big celebration at the end with his music. It would have been perfect because he lives in the Tampa area, and so on. Davis, the writer of this piece, says he was told the idea was pitched to Vince McMahon and he didn't shoot it down, and the idea was still on the table as of late February, so in the last sort of month, the last few weeks approaching WrestleMania. But then the report mentions that even if Hogan had agreed to this, the plans would have been scrapped anyway. Even if WrestleMania as a whole wouldn't have been scrapped, the plans would have been scrapped because if you remember, and it feels like a lifetime ago now, they actually pulled the Battle Royals from the show before they, changed WrestleMania altogether. However, it may not have just been the ongoing pandemic that was the reason that we never got to see this wonderful moment. Apparently, talks may have actually broken down because WWE and Hulk Hogan couldn't agree financial terms with each other. Now, I don't want to speculate too much, but I think what that might mean is Hogan was like, Battle Royal win? Yes, please, mate, give me all the money. And WWE went, no. Not all the money, Terry. And so that is it for today's news video. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. I will leave you with a match recommendation, just a classic fun one. It's Kane versus Big Show versus Raven at WrestleMania X7, a wild and wacky backstage brawl outside largely of a wrestling ring. I could maybe have been inspired to make that pick by the Stadium Stampede match, which was a lot of fun. I don't know. It's just a fun one. Check it out if you've not seen it. Especially if you've not seen it, you're in for a treat. And stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.